All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Indiana's top officials still trying to figure out details of a planned ICE detention facility at Camp Atterbury. The facility would hold about 1,000 people. Governor Mike Braun says state officials will ensure detainees experience humane treatment. He also weighed in on the controversy surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Well, I wouldn't entertain it unless that was going to be the case. And remember, again, I've been clear. I'm for helping remove criminals after they came in here illegally. And some of the egregious ones we'd all agree with. So if we've got a facility, we're going to be helpful because I've been on record of doing that. The details, the logistics of it have not been fleshed out yet, but you can see what's happening across the country. Some places are fighting it, to where I guess they want those members to stay within their sanctuary cities. Here in our state, we're going to do what I said I'd do from the get-go. The worst first, and going after ones that broke the law once they came into the country illegally, and that's to the extent I'm going to be willing to help. What have I been for? Full transparency. I think the Speaker and the Trump administration are out there now where they're for it fully. I think they kind of were all along. I beg the question, why wasn't that done in the prior 4 years? Now it seems like it's got a heavy political overtone to it, but I'm for full transparency. I think we're going to get it. I think the American public deserves it. We'll wait and see.
Meanwhile, Congressman Andre Carson also calling for the Epstein files to be released. Garrett Bergquist asked Carson about efforts in the House to release them and what more Carson has learned about Camp Atterbury.
Joining us now is Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
What do you make of House Speaker Mike Johnson's decision to send the House home early? There are a number of lawmakers that are calling for an investigation to the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Well, clearly there's a lot of arm twisting and backroom deals taking place. House Republicans are shutting down the House until September to block a vote on essentially releasing the Epstein files. They would rather protect the elite than give the American people the truth that they deserve.
Should the Department of Justice release the files that it has on Epstein?
Well, yes. Donald Trump and House Republicans are so scared of releasing the Epstein files that they're shutting down the House and keeping Congress out of session for more than a month to basically avoid a vote that would make this information very public.
Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky says that he's circulating a motion that would basically force a vote on releasing those files. Would House Democrats back him on that if a handful of Republicans were joining in on that effort?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the caucus in this moment, but again, I will reiterate that overwhelmingly so, Democrats want the files to get released.
Changing gears, what new information do you have about the planned ICE detention facility at Camp Atterbury?
Well, again, I'm so concerned that there are so many detainments that Camp Atterbury is even needed in the first place. Camp Atterbury is meant, as I've said over and over again, as a military training operations center. It has been used on a temporary basis, as we know, for emergency response needs, but deportation policies are not an emergency. As a former law enforcement officer, I know that there are bad actors who need to be held accountable. That's not what's happening. What's happening is families are being ripped apart. Folks are being unfairly targeted for minor or even nonviolent infractions or no infractions at all. So Trump's deportation policies are not making us safer. They're using valuable, very valuable resources to detain law-abiding members of our community.
Would ICE itself be running the facility, or would the Indiana National Guard be detailed to run it?
Well, as we understand, I mean, it is still a facility that is under the control of the National Guard. I would imagine at this point that there will be some cooperative relationship between the two entities, but it is still a site that is managed and overseen and falls under the jurisdiction of the National Guard.
So at the end of the day, you believe that the Indiana National Guard would be responsible for the day-to-day operations and the conditions at the facility?
I've not said it absolutely. I think that falls under the purview of the administration, but there clearly will be cooperation between the National Guard and DHS.
I want to briefly address the latest in the situation in the Middle East. Iranian officials say that they plan to continue enriching uranium, but they are open to negotiations. How confident are you that they will come to the table and we will get a lasting deal?
Well, my hope is that a deal will take place. I mean, we've dealt with this before. We dealt with it when we had a deal on the table under the Obama administration, a deal that was blown up under Donald Trump's leadership. My hope is that if the Iranian government is working toward greater enrichment efforts, that we don't see them get to weapons grade level where they could become a major threat in the region. And so my hope is that Donald Trump and the administration will do the right thing and become balanced brokers to bring about peace in that region.
You recently filed legislation to require all firearms sales to include a written notice on safe storage, and you also wanted to create grants and tax credits for safe storage devices. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. It's a piece of legislation that hopefully will incent gun owners to have locked firearms in a safe storage facility and to provide tax incentives for those who adhere to these policies. And I think it is a way, hopefully, to create an environment of being a responsible gun holder. I believe in the Second Amendment. As a former police officer, I believe strongly in it. But I also believe in, if you're going to be a firearms holder, you should have proper training and making sure that you're properly maintaining and storing a firearm. So we want to incent folks to continue to do so.
How would this work in practice? Would you present the receipt and try to get a tax credit on that, or how would that work? Absolutely. We want receipts, but also down the line, as I've spoken to many of my friends who I've served with, who are now executives in law enforcement agencies, be it chiefs of police or sheriffs, or even high-ranking brass, we would love to see some kind of certification, if you're going to be a firearms holder, to pass a basic firearms examination or test, but that's farther down the line. Right now, we want to make sure that people are storing these weapons in a secure place and locking them properly. So we want to incent folks as they make their deductions annually. We would like to include that as an additional deduction. Congressman Andre Carson, thank you for joining us.
What an honor. Thank you.
All right, coming up, a state lawmaker wants to put downtown Indianapolis under state control. We explain the proposal and its potential pitfalls after the break. Welcome back. A state senator wants Indiana's government to take over the Mile Square in Indianapolis. The proposal also would include Victory Field and Lucas Oil Stadium. He calls it a solution to public safety in downtown. Our government reporter Garrett Bergquist digs into the proposal and its potential pitfalls.
If State Senator Michael Young has his way, everything you see here will be under the control of a state commission, not the Indianapolis city government. Young tells me he was already working on the idea when 2 teens were killed and 5 more were hurt on July 5th.
When I see these parents, a lot of them are single mothers, and even a lot more are grandparents. And I see them, how heartbroken they are, and they're crying, and they're wailing. You just can't watch that and say, I'm just going to sit back and not do anything.
Young's proposal would carve the entire Mile Square out of the city of Indianapolis. That's the area bounded by North, South, East, and West Streets. A state-appointed commissioner and council would run the enclave rather than the city government. Voters could decide whether or not to retain them, just like they do with state Supreme Court justices. The state would provide all the services the city currently does, and the Attorney General would prosecute any crimes committed there.
And if you think back till the 1990s, Evan Bayh sent the state police up to Gary in Lake County and solved their crime issue in about 90 days or so. So we know it can be done. We know it can be done by the state police.
Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears says if state lawmakers are unhappy with public safety in his county, they have only themselves to blame.
When they talk about taking over Marion County, they already have with our judges. We don't get to elect our judges in Marion County. They're appointed by the governor. And so we've already seen this quote unquote state control at the local level here in Marion County, and they complain about the very people that they appoint pursuant to a law that they drafted.
Young says the mile square would pay for itself. He says the money would come from existing hotel and lodging taxes and property taxes, for example. One expert in local governance says he's not so sure.
Most cities in their downtowns, they've set up tax incremental financing districts to bring in businesses. They've set up redevelopment districts. So the state, in effect, has all these economic development, downtown development issues that have already been dealt with by the city of Indianapolis that, in effect, they're either going to be interfering with or they're going to be grandfathering in, which is going to affect the tax flow into the city.
Helmke is a former Republican mayor of Fort Wayne. He says if the state takes over the mile square, that means state agencies will have to figure out day-to-day problems, such as fixing potholes. He says the move probably is technically legal, with the possible exception of taking prosecutions away from the elected county prosecutor.
But the thing that bothers me most is this idea that we don't need a local democracy, that we don't trust the local voters to do what's best. In effect, it's the legislature once again saying, we don't like the mayor you chose, we don't like the council you chose, we don't like the way your police department's working, we know best.
Now, it'll be a long time before we see any potential legislative action on this. State lawmakers don't even begin their next session until January. In downtown Indianapolis, I'm Garrett Bergquist for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
All right, coming up here in the show, Indiana's best political team tackles the Epstein files and the mile square debate. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Lara Beck and Republican Massillamany. Let's begin with the controversy over the Jeffrey Epstein files. A House subcommittee has subpoenaed the Department of Justice over them, as you very well know. Mario, we'll start with you this week. Two questions here. How likely is it that the DOJ actually releases what it has, and what kind of damage could this do to President Trump?
I really don't think there's going to be any damage to President Trump. The Epstein case had been going on well during Biden's administration. If there was evidence or any issues regarding Epstein and connections to Donald Trump, other than what we already know, they would have been easily released. The Democrats are now trying to claim, oh, we need all these files released. Well, they never asked for those files to be released during Biden's administration. And I mean, let's be honest. If truly there was something in there, the DOJ knew some things that were incriminating or implicating Donald Trump in some sort of nefarious behavior, that would have been leaked, that would have been released during Biden's administration when Trump was running again. So I don't believe there's anything of significance regarding Donald Trump. Now, do I believe that there might be some issues regarding other influential, important people, especially wealthy donors to both the Republicans and Democrats? I think that could be an issue. And I think that if they go through the manifests of the travel manifests and videos that were taken from that island, I think that there are other people that could be implicated, could be, seriously, their reputation could be damaged.
Lara, to that point, is this making unlikely allies of Democrats and maybe even some on the right? And could this also become an issue in next year's elections?
You just never know, because this Epstein issue just hasn't gone away. And I think that when we look at it, I think the reason why we're in the spot we're in is because this is such a self-inflicted wound by Trump on himself. I mean, he basically, along with his supporters, fanned the flames of this conspiracy all along. And ultimately, it's coming out that he lied to his supporters. And so I think his supporters are really frustrated. I think they're angry. I think they want to get to the truth of it, because normal people in their lives can't engage in this type of behavior. They're held to, they get arrested and charged for it. I think the issue with Trump is he's probably in the files. I mean, he partied with Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years or who knows how longer. And he doesn't want this to come out. It's probably likely very embarrassing. There's very little that embarrasses him, but because he has behaved so differently than he normally does on any kind of other issue that's ever come his way, I think there's something there, and he's really worried about it embarrassing him.
All right, well, we'll see what comes out of that. Turning much closer to home, a state lawmaker wants to put the Miles Square in Indianapolis under state control. Now, he cites downtown crime, including that mass shooting over the Independence Day weekend. Laura, Senator Michael Young, he claims that the Miles Square would pay for itself through its existing tax revenue. You buy that?
I think I would take it seriously if this came from a more serious person. This is just all politics. It's all games. It's all because he and a number of other people don't like the prosecutor who's in charge of Marion County right now. I think Paul Helmke makes some excellent points, and I think he recently has said that about the issues that are involved in trying to take the Miles Square out of control of the state. It's always funny when you hear small government Republicans want to add another layer of government to it. One of the interesting side effects, though, and I'd be interested in Mario's take on this, is by taking away control from the prosecutor in Marion County, as Mario and I both know, has the responsibility, because they are the seat of Indiana government is in the Miles Square. Yeah. So you would essentially take away the ability for an independently elected prosecutor to have any oversight over state government, over city government. And I think there's a lot of unintended consequences politically that a lot of Republicans wouldn't want to see happen, particularly those in the state house.
Ryan Mears, Mario, as you know, he was elected prosecutor here in Marion County. So would this violate the state constitution?
So Ryan actually worked for me when I was the chief trial deputy at the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. And, one of the biggest problems, I think, with this is, there is a problem in downtown Indianapolis. I was looking at just when we were talking about the curfew issue in April of 2024, all of a sudden, Hogsett said that we were going to enforce the curfews. That was in 2024. Then in 2025, now we're talking about creating more stringent curfew issues. The key is that Hogsett his administration has been just woefully, bad as it pertains to not just crime, but also with other issues like sexual harassment, things of that nature. If they just enforce the laws that are currently on the books, look at it. Look at last weekend, right? We had the WNBA All-Star game. We had, I think it was the Circle City Classic also present. We didn't have any issues because guess what? Braun had state police there along with IMPD. They made sure that the curfew laws were implemented and there were no issues, no crime or significantly dropped. And so all I think the Republicans and even Democrats want is that for the Hogsett administration and IMPD to enforce the laws that are currently on the books. And I think that's the main thing. If this bill forces Ryan Mears and IMPD and the Hogsett administration to actually take crime seriously, then maybe, we'll actually get them to enforce the laws that are currently in the books, because you're having all these juveniles roaming the streets clearly past curfew. Get them off the streets. If you tell them you're going to...
Mario, I hate to cut you off. I only have a minute and a half left, and I want to get your both of you in on this Camp Atterbury stuff. As you know, it will serve as a detention facility for suspected illegal immigrants. Congressman Carson's office tells us they've been told about 1,000 people will be held there at any given time. Mario, your thoughts on this, and also the way that this has played out throughout the country and other facilities?
I think the main thing is that if they're arresting and detaining illegal immigrants that have been committing crimes, I don't think Republicans or Democrats are going to have any issues with this. We have a number of illegal immigrants in Marion County and around the state that have committed crimes. I was looking at the jail stats from Hamilton County Jail. There were over 400 illegal immigrants that were arrested in Hamilton County in 2024. So if illegal immigrants that are committing crimes are being detained and kept at Camp Atterbury, I think Republicans and Democrats are going to be both happy at that, because it basically keeps our streets safe.
Lara, 30 seconds. Close us out.
I think this is going to come back as a very dark chapter in our nation and unfortunately now our state's history. I would love to think that they are taking dangerous criminals off the streets, but the facts are playing out that that's not the case. And I think that it's very unfortunate because the last thing we want is our National Guard tied up in this. And I'm very concerned about it, and as I think most people are.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be watching. Lara, Mario, good to see you both. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we will be right back. All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. Of course, we'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. And be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com. And for more politics, head on over to our website. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.